Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna Madhava Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribrajakacharya Stotarashad Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद जद्वैत गदाधर शिवसदि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय, मायापुर धाम की जय, जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय, गंगा माई की जय, यमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, समेत भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौ प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. Glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. Glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, verse number 31. Vishoko Brahma Sampatya Sanchinna Dvaita Samshayaha Lina Prakriti Nirgunyad Alingatvad Asambhavaha. Vishokaha, free from bereavement. Brahma Sampatya, by possession of spiritual assets. Sanchina, being completely cut off. Dvaita Samshayaha, from the doubts of relativity. Lina, merged in. Prakriti, material nature. Nirgunyat, due to being in transcendence. Alingatvad, because of being devoid of a material body. Asambhavaha, free from birth and death. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Because of his possessing spiritual assets, the doubts of duality were completely cut off. Thus, he was freed from the three modes of material nature and placed in transcendence. There was no longer any chance of his becoming entangled in birth and death, for he was freed from material form. Purport. Doubts of duality begin from the misconception of the material body, which is accepted as a self by less intelligent persons. The most foolish part of our ignorance is our identifying this material body with the self. Everything in relation with the body is ignorantly accepted as our own. Doubts due to misconceptions of myself and mine. In other words, my body, my relatives, my property, my wife, my children, my wealth, my country, my community, and hundreds and thousands of similar illusory contemplations cause bewilderment for the conditioned soul. By assimilating the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, one is sure to be released from such bewilderment Because real knowledge is knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudev, Lord Krishna, is everything, including one's self. Everything is a manifestation of his potency as part and parcel. The potency and the potent are non different, so the conception of duality is at once mitigated by attainment of perfect knowledge. As soon as Arjuna took up the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, expert as he was, he could at once eradicate the material conception of Lord Krishna, his eternal friend. He could realize that the Lord was still present before him by his instruction, by his form, by his pastimes, by his qualities, and everything else related to him. He could realize that Lord Krishna, his friend, was still present before him by his transcendental presence in different non-dual energies, and there was no question of attainment of the association of the Lord by another change of body under the influence of time and space. By attainment of absolute knowledge, one can be in association with the Lord constantly, even in this present life, simply by hearing, chanting, thinking of, and worshipping the Supreme Lord. One can see him, one can feel his presence even in this present life, simply by understanding the Advaya Jnana Lord or the Absolute Lord through the process of devotional service, which begins with hearing about him. Lord Chaitanya says that simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can at once wash off the dust on the mirror of pure consciousness. And as soon as the dust is removed, one is at once freed from all material conditions. To become free from material conditions means to liberate the soul. As soon as one is, therefore, situated in absolute knowledge, his material conception of life is removed, or he emerges from a false conception of life. Thus, the function of the pure soul is revived in spiritual realization. This practical realization of the living being is made possible due to his becoming free from the reaction of the three modes of material nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. By the grace of the Lord, a pure devotee is at once raised to the place of the absolute, and there is no chance of the devotees becoming materially entangled again in conditioned life. One is not able to feel the presence of the Lord in all circumstances until one is endowed with the required transcendental vision made possible by devotional service prescribed in the revealed scriptures. Arjuna had attained this stage long before on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and when he apparently felt the absence of the Lord, he at once took shelter of the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, and thus again he was placed in his original position. This is the position of Vishoka, or the stage of being freed from all grief and anxieties. The translation once again. Because of his possessing spiritual assets, the doubts of duality were completely cut off. Thus, he was freed from the three modes of material nature and placed in transcendence. There was no longer any chance of his becoming entangled in birth and death, for he was freed from material form. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Oof, what a purport it is. There's so much in the purport, like you can talk for days and days and days. Thanks to Srila Prabhupada, we have so much better understanding of this verse, because if we just read the verse by itself, it would be really difficult to, understand all the parts of this particular verse. So we see here that Sutta Goswami is continuing his instructions, whatever he had heard. And he talks about spiritual assets. And when I read that in the translation, that Arjuna possessed spiritual assets, you know what I had to do? Call Balabhadra Prabhu. What is it? What are these spiritual assets? Because sometimes, the mind goes blank. And, in spite of thinking and thinking and thinking, it's like, I can't figure out. And he said, the spiritual assets are we engaging in devotional service. When we engage in devotional service, we get those spiritual assets like faith, firm faith in Krishna, and also we get that mood in which we perform devotional service thinking of Krishna, and that is actually real samadhi. You see, the other spiritual asset we get is control of the senses, which is so difficult. We also learn how to respect all living entities. In fact, in Bhagavad Gita chapter 12, verse 13 through 20, we get the list of all those spiritual assets. What are those? That the devotee is not envious, is kind to all, is not the proprietor, has no false ego, no duality, is tolerant, patient, satisfied, self-controlled. There is determination, is fixed in Krishna consciousness, does not put others in difficulty. You see, there's so many of them, right? Is not disturbed, is equipoised, there is no fear, there is no anxiety. Even this verse talks about no fear and anxiety, is pure, is expert, there's no lamentation, is equal to all living entities, is fixed in knowledge, is silent, there's no contamination, and above all, is engaged in devotional service. Can you imagine so many spiritual assets? And all this is possible just by performing devotional service very sincerely and seriously. So what is the result of this? That attracts Krishna. Krishna starts looking at us. Krishna starts becoming conscious of us. Why? Because in this chapter, Bhagavad Gita 12th chapter, these verses that I read, 13 to 20, Krishna says, anyone who possesses these spiritual assets is very dear to me. You see, material assets are not so valuable because they do not attract Krishna. What did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say? Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadishaka, mama janmani janmani ishware. That he doesn't want any material assets, neither good birth, nor wealth, nor followers, nor position. No, even liberation is considered a material asset. It's not a spiritual asset at all. So you see, when we learn about Arjuna possessing all these spiritual assets, what we could probably do is put all these spiritual assets in a bag and hang it around our neck, to keep reminding us these are the assets that we need to acquire if we still don't have them. You see, so just a desire to hear about Krishna, that itself is a blessing. How many people are there in this world? How many, people are actually interested in Krishna consciousness? Very few, right? So if we have got this golden opportunity to be Krishna conscious, then we should try to increase our desire to hear. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, hearing is the first step. That's why we have 2 ears and only 1 mouth to speak. 2 means we should hear double the time that we talk. So hearing is very, very important, because when we hear Krishna Katha, those sound vibrations, they enter our heart and they start purifying the heart. Why should we hear Krishna Katha? Because it's coming from Krishna. All the instructions of Bhagavad Gita are coming from Krishna. Even all the pastimes, everything that we hear in Srimad Bhagavatam, they're all coming from Krishna. So here, what is the position of Arjuna? That the doubts of duality were completely cut off. What are the dualities? Happiness, distress, heat, cold, success, failure, fame, infamy. All these are dualities. See, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, Matra sparsha sukantaya shitoshan sukh dukkhadaha. That the happiness and distress, they are like summer and winter seasons, they come and go. We have to become titikshasva. We become tolerant. We need to tolerate them and not get affected. And that was the situation of Arjuna. His doubts of duality were all completely cut off. He was free from three modes of material nature. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, we learn about modes of material nature. And finally, Krishna gives the formula how to transcend these three modes and come to the mode of pure goodness, come to that Shuddha Sattva stage, pure goodness. How? By engaging in full devotional service, not 10%, 20%, 60%, 80%, no, 100%, completely engaged in full devotional service. And Krishna tells Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, unfailing in all circumstances. You know, maybe if there is a health challenge, then one may say, oh, maybe I shouldn't chant today because I don't have energy. You know, my mouth is dry, I have this disease and it's not practical. I will chant tomorrow. No, doesn't matter what the circumstances, unfailing in all circumstances, Krishna says. Then there will be no more entanglement, and then there will be no more coming back into the cycle of birth and death. And what will be the result of that? We become free from material form. No more material body. We get a spiritual body. But here in this purport, Srila Prabhupada says, we can be in that state even while being in this body right now. Many times we've heard Srila Prabhupada say that one can be liberated even while being in this material body. In fact, today's purport, he says, you can even see Krishna. You can feel the presence of Krishna even while in this material body. You see? So the doubts of duality are present when someone is on the bodily concept of life, thinking, I am this body. And Prabhupada says that's being less intelligent. He calls them foolish. He calls them, that's the most foolish part of ignorance. But Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, they help us to come out of this bodily concept, to remove this ignorance. In fact, the basic foundation of Bhagavad Gita is, I am not this body, right? On body concept, we accept everything in relation to the body, like I, me, mine, myself. It's all about I. So when that concept is there, then it goes on to the extended family, my wife, my husband, my children, my relatives, my mother, my father, my property, etc., etc. And Prabhupada says this is all illusion. That means a person is deep in Maya and is completely entangled. And because of this entanglement, there is bewilderment. Most people are conditioned. And that's why most of them are bewildered. They don't know what's the goal of life. They don't know what is right, what is wrong. They don't know what to do, where to go. No idea at all. Just simply living from day to day. But Bhagavad Gita helps us to remove that bewilderment. What is Krishna calling Bhagavad Gita as Rajavidya? Rajavidya, Rajaguhyam, Pavitramidam Uttamam. Right? It's a king of education. He even says Susukham, that it gives joy and happiness. How? By removing our ignorance. When, the ignorance is removed, when we get the light of the Bhagavad Gita, then all that darkness of ignorance is removed. You see, we chant mostly every day, Om Agyanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya. What is that? It is a prayer to the spiritual master, bona fide spiritual master, who helps to remove the darkness of ignorance. How? By guiding us. Because we are unable to guide our own selves, so we need guidance. You see? So Arjuna, he was able to understand that there is no difference between Krishna, his form, his name, his pastimes, his instructions. There's no difference at all. So that is why he could feel Krishna's presence. Even though Krishna had left the planet, he could still feel just by remembering the pastimes of Krishna. And he could understand there's no difference. Krishna, his instructions, the same. Remembering the instructions of Krishna is the same. The same applies even to a bona fide spiritual master. Many times he is not personally present. He may be in a different part of the country or different country or different planet or in the spiritual world, whatever it may be. But his instructions, his Vani, there's no difference between him and his instructions. So when we follow the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master, we are associating with him. Then we can feel his presence. Then we can feel his guidance. But then the first step is to be taken by us. So here we see that Arjuna, he was, you can say, he was fully surrendered, completely surrendered, right? It is explained like, I was actually reading the transcription of Srila Prabhupada's, lecture on this verse. And he explains how Arjuna was so surrendered. He gave example like a child on the lap of the mother. Feels very secure, no worries, no problems, doesn't feel helpless at all. But if one is not surrendered, then one is full of fear, anxiety, feels helpless. You see, that is the position. So if we can somehow or the other understand the very first instruction of Bhagavad Gita, that we are not this body. It's very, theoretically it's very easy to understand. Oh yeah, I'm not this body. Wake up in the morning, I'm not this body, I'm the spirit soul. But how to actually realize it, how to put that into practice, how to really, become self-realized, where can understand the difference between body and the spirit soul. One way is that we can visualize the picture on the cover of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, Arjuna on the chariot, right? On the chariot, Srila Prabhupada explains in his lecture that on the chariot, when we are on the chariot, we can think this body is a chariot. And the senses are the horses. The mind is the reins that are connected to the horses. Intelligence is the driver, and we spirit soul are the passenger. So we are sitting on the chariot of the body, whereas the intelligence is the driver. So if the intelligence does not control the reins, does not control the mind, then the horses, which are the senses, are going to go wild. So to control the senses, the mind should be under control. And the mind can come under control only when the intelligence is able to control them. And Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that we should sharpen our intelligence with the sword of knowledge. So when we hear Krishna Katha, when we hear this knowledge, it sharpens our intelligence, which is able to control the mind so that the senses can come under control. Otherwise, there will be bewilderment. There's going to be helplessness. There's going to be worry, and the person will be lost. See? So if we do not accept this knowledge and put it into practice, then we'll be wandering in different species of life, different bodies, different species. So since we have this golden opportunity of Krishna consciousness, should take it very seriously. Obey the instructions of Guru and Krishna. Try to focus on Krishna. My husband gives a very nice analogy. He says that when we are driving on the highway and it's pitch dark, it's nighttime, when we are driving, if we want to see the road ahead, there are two options. One is to turn on the, what is that light called? Headlight. turn on the headlight so we can see the road ahead. Another possibility is you hold a bulb, crank down the window, and put the bulb outside, hold it outside so that you can see. How can you see? Because that bulb is the light of the bulb is going to spread all over, whereas the headlight is focused on the road. How? Because there's, I believe, a parabolic mirror. I think that's what it's called. I don't know. Parabolic mirror inside that headlight, which focuses the light completely on the road ahead. So we are able to see clearly. So focus is very, very important. If we can focus our lives on Krishna, then it'll become very, very easy. So we see here that Arjuna, he realized that Krishna was still present with him, of course, even in the form of his energies. So there is no need to attain Krishna's association in another body. You see, because this absolute knowledge from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, they help us to be in association of Krishna. Even while in this body, we can have his association. How? By chanting, by hearing, by remembering, by worshiping, by serving. There's so many different options. Prahlad Maharaj has given us 9 processes of devotional service, but it starts with hearing, Shravanam, then Kirtanam, chanting. So Srila Prabhupada, he confirms that one can see Krishna if one reaches the stage of pure devotional service. But to do that, first step is, of course, hearing, but then chanting attentively. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us that just by chanting, we can purify ourselves and come to that stage of pure devotional service. How? Cheto Darpanam Marjanam. That as we go on chanting, the mirror of our heart starts getting cleansed. It becomes pure. Then we are able to realize ourselves. Then we can see ourselves in the mirror of the heart. So Srila Prabhupada gives a solution. How to remove this bodily concept of life? Knowledge and practice that will lead us to pure devotional service. But that practice has to be very sincere. Only when Krishna sees our sincerity and he sees how serious we are in this path, then he showers his mercy. Then what is the result? The devotee does not operate on the level of false ego. False conception is completely removed. But for that, one needs to transcend the 3 modes of material nature and come to the stage of pure goodness. How? Following Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. It's not that difficult, right? Then no more material entanglement. And then in that stage of life, in that state, one will feel the presence of Krishna. So we see here Arjuna, he had already attained that stage. When? Even before the war. If you remember the purport, Srila Prabhupada says he was in that stage, he attained that stage even before the Kurukshetra war. How? Because he had heard Bhagavad Gita. If you remember, Bhagavad Gita was spoken before the war commenced. So he heard the whole Bhagavad Gita, 700 shlokas, and then he was completely self-realized. So he had attained that stage already. And because he understood the Bhagavad Gita, he acted accordingly. He had realized, if you remember, there's a beautiful verse, right, where Arjuna is acknowledging, Krishna, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And now I have understood what is my prescribed duty. See, most of us don't know what is our prescribed duty. So if we don't know, what should we do? We should take guidance from a bona fide spiritual master. Inquire, what is my prescribed duty? Then we are in safe hands. Then when we get that answer to our question, when we come to know what is our prescribed duty, we just follow it. We are in safe hands. We cannot go wrong, because these are the direct instructions from the spiritual master. So Arjuna, he had understood his prescribed duty. Now you see, Krishna, he had already left the planet. But before leaving the planet, he left Bhagavad Gita. That's so compassionate of him. He knew our situation. He knew people in Kali Yuga are going to be so degraded, lazy, unfortunate, so many disqualifications, quarrelsome, will not know what is goal of life. So he left Bhagavad Gita for us. He knew that we are going to be in trouble. He knew we are going to make trouble. He knew that it'll be very difficult to bring us out of trouble. He knew we will need help and guidance. And that is why he left Bhagavad Gita for us. He's the Supreme Lord. He knew that we are going to be struggling in our lives. We'll be struggling for existence. We will be using our mind to, to enjoy. There will be no control of senses. The mind will also go haywire. So, and he also knew that we will give the power of attorney to our minds. Like, okay, go, do whatever you want. And the mind is going to dictate the senses. Go here, go there, do this, do that. And there's going to be complete chaos. So to help us, to make us sane, right now we are insane because we are on the bodily concept of life. I'm talking about myself. So to become sane, he has given us this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita so that we can first understand, I am not this body, I am a spirit soul. Then understand that I am the eternal servant of Krishna. Very important. Then understand Bhagavad Gita and learn how to go back to Godhead, where there is no more lamentation. But one can attain that stage even while in this material body. We can still become conscious, come to that level as Arjuna was in his material body. Because he had attained that stage, Prabhupada says he was no longer in material body because his body had become spiritualized. Nice example given many times by Prabhupada is, take an iron rod, put it in fire. After a while, that iron rod will act like fire because the iron has got the properties of fire. Similarly, when we take up Krishna consciousness, we become Krishnized. So Arjuna, even though he was in material body, but it had become spiritualized. So if one wants to be really happy, then we need to take guidance from the Bhagavad Gita. Very, very important. So when Arjuna, he felt Krishna's absence, he remembered Bhagavad Gita, the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. So when we start feeling absence of the spiritual master, start remembering the instructions of the spiritual master. So when Arjuna was remembering the instructions from Bhagavad Gita, it helped him to come back to his original position. He remembered and he understood who he really is. He understood his real self. And because he understood that, it led him to become free from all anxieties, miseries, grief, everything. Srila Prabhupada said that made him come to the stage of Vishokaha, which means no more bereavement. And when a person doesn't lament, does not bereave, then that is a sign of advancement in spiritual life. Very, very important. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kankshati. It does not lament because he has reached that Brahma Bhuta platform, no lamentation. And because, Arjuna, he had attained those spiritual assets, thanks to Krishna. How fortunate was Arjuna that Krishna was his best friend. And the biggest gift he got from Krishna was knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. Now, Arjuna was already self-realized, but he was put in that situation, in that position, so that he would inquire on our behalf. He asked questions that generally should be our questions, so that Krishna can respond and we have answers to all our questions. Srila Prabhupada says, there is no question in our minds that cannot be answered by Bhagavad Gita. We can find answers to all situations, all questions that we may have. So that's the mercy of Krishna. He, being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he knew Kali Yuga is approaching. People like us are going to be down here, totally bewildered, lamenting all the time, grieving all the time, complaining all the time, accusing all the time, finding faults all the time. These are the disqualifications of people in Kali Yuga. So he gave us Bhagavad Gita, and thanks to Srila Prabhupada, he gave us the beautiful purports to understand. You see? So from this, we can understand Arjuna's position, how, he was remembering Krishna and feeling the presence of Krishna, even though Krishna had left the planet. So the verse once again, because of his possessing spiritual assets, the doubts of duality were completely cut off. Thus, he was freed from the three modes of material nature and placed in transcendence. There was no longer any chance of his becoming entangled in birth and death, or he was freed from material form. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Gita, I can definitely see that this was a power-packed purport by Srila Prabhupada. Amazing, amazing points. And definitely one I feel for myself personally to really do what I call a self-inventory, to actually see where we are, where we want to go, and what it takes to get there, and what are the obstacles. And like you said, it's the mind, to help us to jump those hurdles and get there. And I was going to thank you for such a wonderful class, Madam. I'm going to ask devotees before I ask my question, if there are any questions from devotees, any questions, any clarification, comments, please do unmute yourself. We have wonderful, participants today. Yes, Srinivas Prabhu, go ahead, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, Dandavat Pranams. It was a very wonderful class. Mataji, at one point in time during the class, you mentioned, our devotional service should be 100%, not, 10%, 50%. Can you clarify that? What do you mean by 100%, please?
Okay, so 100% means that first of all, we put Krishna in the center of our lives, which means everything revolves around Krishna. Whether we are going to work, the consciousness should be, I'm going to work for Krishna, and whatever I earn from my job, I'm going to use it in Krishna's service. So any activities we perform, everything, the focus should be Krishna. It should not be that, okay, in the morning, I get up, I do my Mangalarti, I chant my rounds, I hear one lecture, and then I'm done for the day. It shouldn't be just that portion of the day. It has to be all the time, which means we have to be conscious of Krishna all the time. So everything that we do, first thing, like my husband, what he does is everything he does, he thinks, is this something that is going to please Krishna? Is it something that is the right thing to do? Which means, or if, he falls sick, he'll say Krishna's mercy. If he gets well, he says Krishna's mercy, which means conscious of Krishna all the time. That is 100%. Following the instructions of Guru and Krishna, chanting attentively, doing the strong morning program, because that is our shield, to protect us from Maya. So all these aspects come to 100%. But if we only do the morning program only, then you would say maybe 25% of Krishna consciousness. And because then the rest of the day we are busy with our own selves, what does the body want? Of course, we have to maintain body and soul together, but the consciousness is focused on body, family, relatives, etc., etc. We can still do all that, but keep Krishna in the center. right? Everything should be around Krishna. When the focus is on Krishna, then Krishna says the one is unfailing in all circumstances, right? Even when we have health challenges or work challenges or family challenges, whatever it may be, do not forget Krishna. That is 100%. Does that make sense?
Oh, thank you very much, Mataji.
Sure.
That helped.
Very nice question, Srinivas Prabhu, and I know we all benefited from that. Thank you so much. Any questions from devotees? Any thoughts coming to your mind? Yes, Parikshit, go ahead.
Please accept humble obeisances.
Please
All
accept
but
my
Srila
Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada. Again, very nice lecture. Very, very convincing lecture. You had in the middle of the lecture quoted from Shastakam, Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim. And you were talking about the English translation. I don't want wealth, followers, beautiful, woman or men, women, men. It's something that I've been thinking about lately, and I thought, well, maybe I'll just ask your comment on it. Because the direct translation, as far as what I saw when I was in Gitanagri, was that, oh my Lord, I do not want to accumulate wealth. So the verb used there was to accumulate wealth. In other words, my understanding of it was just to have a lot of money and live life to make more and more and more money, to get the satisfaction that I'm rich with so much money. But we do need some money to run our regular material life. So sometimes it would make the Buddhists think that they shouldn't make money at all, because Lord Chaitanya said, I don't want money. But the word that I saw there was accumulation of it. Because Rupa Goswami also said that we actually need to save some money for emergencies. And so I just wanted a little bit more or broader comment about what devotees should think when it comes to money. See, the problem is some people are not even going to school to try to get a degree because we'll just play kirtan and everything. Then they don't have any way of living. You don't have money at all. Lord Chaitanya says not to accumulate, nothing you shouldn't have at all. That's what the fine distinction between these two is what I wanted you to comment a little bit on. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. It's a very deep understanding of this verse that you have, good realization. And thank you for bringing attention to that word accumulate. Yes, accumulate means that itself gives an idea that you're greedy and you want more and more for yourself, for enjoyment. That is accumulation. I want this and I want that. But as Srila Prabhupada many times, even I think it was Swarup Damodar Maharaj, a PhD scientist. In the beginning, he wanted to give up his studies. So Srila Prabhupada said, no, you continue. You take that, get that degree, and then you preach Krishna consciousness with that. So he never encouraged, devotees, his disciples, to give up their jobs or give up their earnings and all. No, because if Krishna wanted, he would have told Arjuna, go to the Himalayas, give up all this, kingdom, opulence and everything. No. So it's just a matter of state of consciousness. Krishna does not say, even Srila Prabhupada does not recommend that we don't earn money. We have to earn money to maintain a body and soul, maintain the family, pay our bills, so that we can preach Krishna consciousness, right? The goal should be very clear in mind. So accumulation is not good, because accumulation leads to greed. And as we know, one can satisfy a hungry person, thirsty person, angry person, but a greedy person can never be satisfied. So the difference is accumulation for self, but earning is necessary, until, of course, unless someone has a big inheritance and doesn't need to work. That's a different situation. Or for instance, my own experience, My husband and I, we retired 10, 15 years ago because there was no need, because our son is taking care of us. He is well settled, you see. So if he is already able to provide us, then what is the need for us to work, right? We could, but that would be accumulating wealth. It's not necessary. But where it is necessary, yes, we should, have an earning so that we can, preach, we can, ourselves maintain the families and lead a Krishna conscious life. So that is my understanding between accumulating and earning. But Krishna should be the center of all those activities. Does that
Thank
make
you very
sense,
much.
Prabhu?
Yes, thank you very much. And you used the key word. Accumulate is the other big word. Greed. When you said greed makes a distinction. To be
Yes.
greedy for all material things, as a matter of fact, not just money only. That's why he went through, beautiful women, followers, all of that, pumping up the false ego. So yeah, the word greed is it really puts things in proper perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
And also, it's the key word is greed, mother, as Parikshit said, because then we know that greed doesn't end, like we've heard from Shiv Prabhupada. He says, okay, I made $1 profit. Okay, fine, then it's very good. I'll make $10 profit. Okay, fine, I'll make $100 profit. Then if I can, like I was talking to one devotee yesterday, Mataji, at the temple, and then I'll go to Dear Krishna. This family was planning to move to a different state because he thought that there'll be more options for his children in terms of more community or something, whatever he was saying. And he got a better offer, but he'd be working long hours, and they were about to move. And he told me this like a month ago. And then yesterday he says, Mataji, I decided not to move. And I was very happy. It's such a wonderful family, actually. And I said, what made you change your mind? And he said, if I go, I have increased salary, long hours, but my kids won't see me. My family won't see me. My wife will be dealing with, because they have very little kids, like 2 years and 6 years, And plus he says, I'll be working from 7 a.m., 7 p.m. Yes, the money is there, but he made a very good point. He said with me, but Mataji, I'm not here to make money and become rich. And he's a doctor. He says, and plus I want a community where we are all small, like a family community, So I said, you made the right choice. So, because there's no end to greed, mother, like you said, we just want more and more and more.
Yeah, that reminds me of a very nice story. If we have time, I can relate that.
Please, mother.
So it's called the 99 Club. The story is titled 99 Club. So the king was very proud of his citizens, and he thought that everyone is very happy and, satisfied. So his minister said, no, I think you are mistaken. So the king said, okay, give me a demonstration. He said, sure, come with me for a walk. So they went for a walk, and the minister, he was passing by a very small, very small hut where, a simple family was living, husband, wife, one child, very poor, they were living. So what he did, he took a bag of 99 gold coins and he put it outside his house, and they left. And, they hid behind the tree to see what happens. So when this poor guy, he came out and he found the bag, and he looked, is there anyone else around? Nobody. He picked that bag and he went home, and he saw, and wow, so many gold coins. He started counting 1, 2, 3, and it was 90. And he said, wow, I wish there was only one more, then it would be 100. 100 is a very lucky number. Now I should do something to get that one coin to make it 100. And so he started on the journey. The greed started on the journey. He was very happy in his little house and, satisfied. But now he went out to look for a job, 2 jobs. He was working, trying to save money to get that one extra gold coin to put in the bag instead of enjoying the 99 gold coins that he had. Right? So we are not satisfied with what we have. We become greedy and we want to go and get that extra 1 gold coin, thinking that is going to make us happy. So That's what I had heard.
That's a wonderful pastime, but a wonderful story, Mother. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. So that reminds me also of another story by Srila Prabhupada. And it's very interesting story. I'll try to keep from laughing with saying it because it was so funny the way Prabhupada described it. So there was a man, poor man, he was selling clay pots. And he was very poor. He had this one clay pot he wanted to sell. And he was thinking about the future. I sell this clay pot and I will make some profit. And I will buy about 2 clay pots and sell them, and I will make more profit. And I'll buy 4 clay pots and sell them, and then give me more profit. So with that, let's get to a point where in the future I will have quite a bit of money, and then I will marry, and I have my wife, and that way I'm rich, and she's my wife, basically a servant, and whatever I tell her to do, she has to do. And if she doesn't do, then I will kick her like this. And as he was trying to describe how he was going to kick his wife for disobedience, he unfortunately, the leg kicked that one part that he intended to sell to start this whole thing and broke the pot. So there's so much for greed. But I think I just remembered the story. Hare Krishna.
There, Mother Gita's laughing. She said,
Yeah, he kicked it.
amazing. Dear Krishna, go ahead, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mother, please accept my humble obeisances of Srila Prabhupada. Very, very wonderful class as always. I think my questions got answered with all the discussion. Just probably I will just put a comment that I heard from Guru Maharaj. He said, no matter how much hard you try, of course we have to do our duty and the minimum basic, but I think it's a challenge for grahasthas like me to figure out what is that threshold. Beyond that, we should not endeavor too much. But he always said, no matter how much you earn or how much you try, whatever is due in your account to enjoy, only that much you can enjoy. Even if you have 1 million, if you are due to enjoy only $50,000, only that much you will be able to enjoy. Rest all will be either remain in the bank or somehow will get spent in medical or whatever. So that always helps me. That simple comment always helps me to always not to become too greedy. I mean, not that I'm successful, but it helps.
Yes, very true. Very important point. Yes, that is karma. Whatever we are entitled to enjoy, we will get nothing more. Yes.
One
Mother,
question, Mataji, is
please
Go
go
ahead,
ahead. Krishna, go ahead.
just on the topic of greed, and then in the initial part of this class, you also mentioned about how it's all about me. For usually I'm thinking about only me, my family, or my extended family, my nation. Those kind of like Srila Prabhupada always mentions that we have to transcend those kind of feelings. So even when we are in the path of devotion, we see it's very hard to get rid of those. We always try to keep ourselves in the center, even when we are practicing devotion. My opinion, what I think is right, this is how it should happen. I mean, of course, it all depends on what position we have, especially when we talk about working or serving as a community. But sometimes we end up holding too much strongly to our opinions and beliefs and our ideas. Any tips, Mother, will be helpful to get rid of those?
Yes, this is actually, I was giving Sunday feast lecture in temple yesterday, and the topic was devotee association. And in that, what we could gather from that was that when we even associate with devotees, we try to mold them. We try to try to put our rules on them. You see that, okay, this is how they should talk. This is how they should behave. This is what they should do, because this is what I think. It is my opinion. And this is how I expect them to behave. You see, so that is actually a disease, because expectations leads to frustrations. We all are individual personalities. We don't have the right to rule others, right? Or to, make them behave in a certain way. We don't have the right to mold them. They are individual personalities. They will, lead their lives the way we want to. So even in, spiritual activities, we have to be very careful. Unless, of course, we are an authority like the temple president or someone, where we need to correct somebody, that's a different thing. But otherwise, we should not. So this I is a disease. You see, you take a word illness, remove the I and put WE, illness becomes wellness. Right? You remove the I. So when we remove the I consciousness and make it a we consciousness, that we all together, we are devotees, we are practicing Krishna consciousness, so let us advance spiritually together. When we have that kind of consciousness, when we don't have that false ego, then it becomes easy. Yes, even in the family, that I should not be there. It has to be we, the whole family together, worship together, chant together, read Bhagavad Gita together, advance together in Krishna consciousness. But if it is just I, then I keep saying, you do this and you do that and you do that, throw our expectations on them, our desires on them. That doesn't work. So that I consciousness, as Krishna also explains, and even Srila Prabhupada, 22 verses in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, talks about the spirit soul. So we need to operate on that level of spirit soul. I is the level of body consciousness. I hope that helps.
Yes, Mother. Dear Krishna said that it was very, very helpful. In fact, as you're speaking, Mother, what was coming to my mind was the mood of collective effort. Where we do it together. And I remember, and it's a very common topic that Anantama Prabhu speaks in his communications courses. Where he says we always have to replace the I with the we.
Mm-hmm.
This is how we were trained, not this is how we were taught. This is how we were instructed. This is how we were told. This is how we were punished. That be so. That way it's it becomes a collective effort. Yeah, that's a good point.
And also one thing that helps in even preaching also, instead of saying you say our. When we put all of us together, that puts across the message more pleasantly than it's you need to chant, you need to no, we need to chant, we need to. So that helps a lot.
That's a good point, Mother. That was also another point that Anantama Prabhu always speaks in his classes, that we have to do the we, not the you. Yeah. Go ahead.
Actually, it's in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Rishabhadev's instruction to his sons. Canto 5, chapter 5, text 8, I think. Danasya moho yamahamameti. Hamameti. I and mine. So the I comes again. So the Lord, Supreme Personality of God, the Lord Rishabhadev, also talks against I and mine, because then again he will push the false ego way high, because then we think that we're the ones that are directing everything. You already given examples, but I just wanted to quote that particular part that Bhagavatam discusses that too. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Nice point. Thank you so much. Amazing topics, actually. I know we passed the 9 o'clock mark, but I just want to make sure if there are any questions from devotees, any thoughts coming. This is a very, very deep topic. Mother, I have a question, if I can just, because it's been on my mind since you started giving the class this morning, is you mentioned spiritual assets that, you had to call Balabhadra Prabhu to get tips. And at the same time, you also mentioned intelligence. And there are situations in some of us where either the spiritual master is not physically on the planet, or there are situations where we cannot, reach out to the spiritual master like a phone call or a WhatsApp or an email, or there's no contact at all, but just seeing the spiritual master once a year, once in 2 years, aside from just listening to the lectures of the spiritual master. But still, we tend to not be able to develop, or how to develop the spiritual assets, because the mind is being such a rascal. Because the intelligent is saying, but I know it all. Why do I need to ask you? I'm strong enough. And I was funny because I was talking about that with my husband last night when we were coming from the temple. And I was sharing a concern I have, and about someone saying, I'm strong, I can do it. And he started laughing. And then he reminded me that my spiritual master said, oh, yeah, wait till Maya catches you, But the thing is, mother, is how can we really have the healthy fear of Maya, by using the intelligence? And at the same time, how do we develop the taste to want to develop the spiritual assets?
Yes,
With
it's
all
very
these limitations, of guru not being there, not even wanting to take shelter of seniors because I know it all.
Yes, that is also a disease. I know it all. That is nothing but false ego. So, what I have noticed is that having devotee association is very important. So, what happens when we have proper devotee association, which means our behavior is proper, our interaction is proper, we are following Vaishnava etiquette. So when we start having that devotee association, we start building good relationships. And the good relationships become stronger when we serve the devotees. You see, when we serve, like I like to call Balabhadra Prabhu to the house and serve, of course, he never wants me to wash his feet, but at least serve prasadam and serve by hearing from him. That is also service, right? Hearing, he will come, give a lecture, we'll have a small gathering, he'll do kirtan and, speak. I think last time when I called him, he spoke about devotee association. And so that association helps us to build strong relationships. You see, like Rupa Goswami says, in these relationships, we should do those 6 activities, right? Give gifts, receive gifts, give prasadam, feed prasadam, accept prasadam, reveal one's own mind, etc., etc. So that building of relationships helps us in improving our own spiritual lives. It helps us to advance. And then it also helps with our intelligence because of association. And because of Srila Prabhupada, we have everything that we need. He's given it to us on a golden platter. All we have to do is just accept it, that's all. But we have to make that effort. You see, okay, if I want to associate, I have to pick up the phone and make a call, or make an arrangement that we can have a personal, one-on-one association. We have to make that extra effort. Then we can be successful. I hope that helps.
Absolutely, mother, because as you were speaking, I remember a quote that I saw this morning from Gauranga Prabhu, where he says that choose wisely, as though your friend circle determines who you become. And then he says, choose wisely, as those who don't push you towards growth will pull you back.
Very
So
important. Yes.
Very powerful. Yeah. And that is devotee association. Absolutely. I think it's only by the mercy of and also it's because the devotees are so merciful that we can grow with them. They'll help us grow and become better devotees. That's the goal of life. Thank you, mother. Very, very nice point, mother. Thank you so much. Any other questions before we end this class? I know we've taken quite a bit of time, but I just want to respect if there's any questions, any comments, any points to share. Yes, Srinivas Prabhu.
Mataji made thanks again for the class. And Mataji made a very good point. Association is very important. But, even within the association of the devotees, as in the corporate world, we say unconscious bias, right? Sometimes we notice there is a bias, right? Hey, he's from different, I don't know how to say it, frankly. He has a, he does not belong to our group, all right? So he's a different, there is some unconscious bias, and that's how sometimes, we get left out. Now, I always think about it sometimes, how do we handle this? I was thinking, I was talking to my wife. I think we may have to go to different places. I think as Prabhupada points out, right, ISKCON is one body, right? If there are two sons, one massages, and he hurts the other parts of the body, the father is going to get impacted by that. It should work as a union, right? But sometimes, we see some unconscious bias. Now, how do we handle that?
Well, Srila Prabhupada explains this very nicely, that if we are in the corporate world, we have to work in a job or whatever, then you cannot avoid association, because you have to, talk to the colleagues and work with them, etc., especially the boss. So in that case, we should give association and not take association. Give. So don't get affected by their consciousness, but try to give part of your consciousness to them in a subtle way. So I remember back in India when my husband was working, they have that annual Diwali party, where all have to come and with their spouses. So we used to go to that party, and then, there would be everything there. There would be non-veg, drinks, everything. So what do? We would just take a glass of water and stand there, and and eat just fruits or whatever, and then that becomes a source of preaching, because they'll say, oh, why aren't you eating meat, or why aren't you taking wine or whiskey or whatever it is. So it's not that we have to stay away from it. Sometimes it's impossible. Sometimes it's mandatory that you have to attend those parties. You can go, but don't take their association, but instead you give association, you see. So even Srila Prabhupada doesn't say, don't go to work, don't talk to this one, don't talk to that one. No, it's just that we have to make our Krishna consciousness so strong that we don't get affected by their consciousness. Instead, we set an example so that they maybe one day will take up Krishna consciousness. So I hope that helps, Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Mataji.
Very nice question. That's something that I'm sure all working people, face that nowadays. Thank you, Prabhu. Any other questions from devotees? Any thoughts, anything that's coming to your mind? This is such a beautiful topic, beautiful discussion, and a power-packed purport by Srila Prabhupada, as always. If there isn't, we thank you all for joining us, and thank you so much, Mother Gita, for such a wonderful, deep, thought-provoking class. Vanchakraptibhyascha, Kripasindhabhevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Have a wonderful day, devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.